There is a small store under my building. It is not big. It sells snacks, water, rice, and soap. But most people do not like going there. The man who owns the store is Mr. Lee. He is old, maybe 60. He has short grey hair and small eyes. He never smiles. He always shouts, "Don't touch that! Pay first! No bags! You bring your own!" He shouts at kids. He shouts at old women. He even shouts when no one is inside. One day I bought some milk. It was a hot day. I said, "Thank you." He did not look at me. He just said, "Next," in a loud voice. I walked out and sighed. Why is he always so angry? Why does he hate everyone? I asked the neighbor, Mrs. Chen. She said, "He's always like that." Since his wife died, he changed. Then she looked away and said no more. At night, I lay in bed and heard his voice again. Even when I closed my window, I could hear him yelling. His voice was part of the building now. But I still wondered, maybe he is not just angry. Maybe he is lonely. Some people speak loud because their hearts are too quiet. It was Sunday morning. I was in a hurry. I wanted to buy eggs before the rain came. I ran down the stairs. I didn't see the small step. I fell hard in front of Mr. Lee's store. My hand hurt. My knee was bleeding. People looked but said nothing. Then I saw someone come out. It was Mr. Lee. He didn't say a word. He bent down and helped me up. His hands were strong but gentle. He gave me a small bottle of water. I said, "Thank you." He looked at me and said, "Be careful next time." His voice was soft, not loud, not cold. Soft. I sat on the step. I drank the water. He went back inside. I looked at the door. He was behind the counter again. Same face, same store. But something had changed. Maybe he does care. Maybe he just doesn't know how to show it. That night I told my friend. She laughed. "Maybe you broke his heart open when you fell," she said. I smiled. Maybe. He is not what he seems. Sometimes kindness wears a grumpy face. After the fall, I started watching Mr. Lee. Not in a weird way, just a little more closely. Every day at 7 a.m., he opened the store. Every night at 9 p.m., he closed it. He always worked alone. He still shouted at people, "Don't touch that! Close the door!" Same voice, same face. But I knew something was different. One evening I stayed late at work. It was past 10 p.m. when I walked home. His store was dark, but the door was open. I looked inside. Mr. Lee was there. He was putting bread and fruit into a bag. I watched quietly. He took 2 boxes of milk. He added some cookies too. Then he walked outside, slowly. I followed him at a distance. He walked to the corner of the street. There was a bench. A homeless man was sleeping there. Mr. Lee placed the bag next to him. He didn't say a word. Then he walked away. I stood there, frozen. My heart felt warm and sad at the same time. He shouts all day, but helps at night. He pushes people away, but gives in silence. The next morning, I went to the store. He was already yelling at someone. I smiled, because now I knew his secret. People yell when no one listens. It was a normal Monday morning, cloudy sky, cold wind. Mr. Lee was in his store, yelling again. "Don't lean on the freezer. Pay first." Same voice, same frown. Then the door opened. A little girl walked in. She had 2 pigtails and a red backpack. She looked around, smiled, and said, "Hello, Mr. Lee. I like your dog." Everyone froze. I was near the bread shelf. I peeked up. Mr. Lee looked confused. "My dog?" he asked. The girl pointed to the old photo on the wall. It was a photo of a brown dog. Happy eyes, big tongue. "He looks nice," the girl said. "My grandma says dogs make people kind." Mr. Lee stared at the photo. For a long time he said nothing. Then he smiled. Not a big smile, Just a small one. But it was real. His name was Lucky, Mr. Lee said. He was a good dog. The girl nodded. Lucky name, she said. Then she bought a candy and left. After that, something changed. That day, Mr. Lee didn't yell. He said thank you to a woman buying rice. He helped an old man carry water. The store felt different, lighter, softer. We all felt it. A smile can change a whole street. A few days later, I saw Mr. Lee sitting outside. He was drinking tea. The sun was warm. The street was quiet. I walked over and said, "Good morning, Mr. Lee." He nodded. Then he looked up and said, "Do you want to sit?" I sat beside him. We didn't talk at first. Just listened to the birds. Then he said, "She used to love mornings like this." I asked softly, "Your wife?" He nodded. "She made me laugh, every day." His voice was low. "She died 3 years ago. Heart stopped, just like that." I didn't know what to say. He kept speaking. After she died, the world felt too loud, so I became louder than it. I thought if I shouted, the silence wouldn't eat me. My heart ached. I looked at him. "But the little girl," he smiled. "She sounded like her." Same small voice, same bright eyes. It brought her back for 1 second. We sat in silence again. That evening I went to the store. He was talking to a customer, not yelling, just talking. The light above his head felt softer. I finally understood. Mr. Lee didn't change. We just didn't see him clearly before. Sometimes we need to look twice to see the truth.